Oh, it's the paladin. Be like the next best warrior, right? The paladin is the budget warrior. Oh my god, are we gonna get into the rant of paladins that I've had before with the fucking Tauren paladins and undead paladins and orc paladins? Jesus Christ. I think we had this discussion on the stream. In terms of fantasy, I have played RPGs that had paladins but did not have warriors. I think maybe the Eastern style RPGs favors classes like Paladin and Dark Paladin or whatever the fuck that is. But Blood Elf Paladins. Well, let's talk a little bit about the fantasy of Paladin, because I really love the fantasy of Paladin, even though I rarely main Paladin. It's because there are a couple of things that it's lacking. The fantasy of Paladin is actually really cool, and I did talk about this, and the fact that they keep retconning the fantasy of Paladin is one of the main reasons why I really cannot get behind it. But you can take it all the way back to the most famous Paladin of all, which was Arthas. Which, if you really think about it, the Arthas story was maybe the best way to talk about a Paladin retconning. To talk about a Paladin story, right? Because it shows you the faith part that goes into the Paladin. If you've read the Arthas book, you probably will know what I'm talking about. And if you haven't, you should probably read the Arthas book, because it's really cool. So basically, Paladins are warriors, right? Warriors trained in the martial arts, the arts of war, but they also put in the faith, right? The faith into their prowess. They take in the blessings of the light, and they protect people, right? You could say that Paladins are more focused towards being tanks than warriors are, because they have the protect my party, my people, more so baked into their fantasy than the warriors have, right? And if you really think about it, initially, and this is my gripe with the fantasy of the Paladin, is the fantasy of the Paladin was created with the Order of the Silver Hands that we talked about before. Lances Fowl, the priest, that's now an undead priest, and Uther the Lightbringer founded the Order of the Silver Hand. They've trained paladins there, paladins like Tyrion and paladins like Turalian, Jesus. To bear the light and bear arms and protect their fellow human. And the reason why this is so cool and I dislike what it is now is because it was created, let's say, by human hands, right? By human hands. It's not. Initially, it wasn't this. Oh, you're infused with the cosmic power of the Naru, of the light, or Anshe, or whatever the Taurens have, right? Or the Sunwell, right? This mystical power of super fantastic meaning, right? It was just pure people and pure faith, right? If you're gonna be talking about faith in anything, the original Paladins are the coolest Paladins in my book, because you didn't rely on a cosmic being to infuse you with power. It was just you and your faith, right? And that's cooler to me than, you know, drawing your power from the Naru, from the Sunwell, from Anshe, or whatever. Whatever the Paladins had in TBC. I do like that. For instance, Tauren have their own faith, though. It's, yeah, I get it, right? If it's faith, but it's okay. Faith being something that every race has is perfectly fine, right? It just, the way that the Paladins were introduced, it doesn't make sense for Taurens, because Taurens, if you go through their initial inception into the lore, they were a nomadic tribe of, you know, earth-loving beasts, right? They're beasts. They patrol the plains. They worship the Earth Mother. That was their fate, right? The faith of the Taurens basically relied in their shamanism, right? They have faith in the Earth Mother and the elements, and they draw that power in to enact whatever they enact into the world. The Tauren Paladins is bullshit, because that wasn't in their lore. They just was added retroactively so that it would make sense for Tauren Paladins to exist. And if you do that, then anything makes sense. You can make anything make sense. And that's just a little bit silly, because it loses value when anything can happen. Then nothing is special anymore, right? If anybody can be a paladin, it's not, you're not special for being a human paladin or dwarf paladin or something like that. Sunwalkers are only called paladins because of gameplay. They are not paladins. Yeah, see, that's the thing. Marcian has been upgraded. Indeed, Marcian is reading right now. He's just doing his research. It is what it is. But that's my problem with the Paladins, right? And this is why I cannot get 100% behind them. You could say that the most I was able to accept were the Draenei Paladins that took power from the Naru, mostly because at the time the Naru were the the equivalent of divinity in TBC, or at least how divinity was interpreted by a player like me, since you had the overall negative power, the void, the evil, the void, right? And the opposition being the Naru, the light, right? The light being represented by the Naru and the darkness shadow being represented by the void lords or whatever. Marcelian needs new batteries. Yeah, he's kind of stuck. I have to wind them back up. So, okay, I can give you that, but that's still a little bit far-fetched. And Draenei Paladins look fucking awesome in big fucking plate armor and big two-handed maces, right? That looks fucking cool, like we have in the artwork there. But thematically, the OG Paladins will always be the best. Think about Arthas, man. Think of the journey that he had to go through to get from, the spoiled prince to learning to fight with Myrddin and learning then the ways of the Paladin from Uther as well, and then putting that faith into his actions for as long as he did. That was really cool, right? Imagine if he was empowered by the Naru, the light, the cosmic beings. He probably would have never turned into a Death Knight. He would have had enough righteous power to smack down Mal'Ganis back there in Stratholme, right? He probably would have never, because Paladins now, in the lore, with everything that goes into a Paladin, are way stronger than Paladins that were in Warcraft 3. So I feel, my personal opinion is that the way that the fantasy created the Paladins now kind of invalidates Arthas' journey, since if Arthas was the kind of Paladin that can benefit from everything that a Paladin benefits from today, he would have fucking burned the entire Northrend down with the amount of innate potential that he has. And even as a Paladin, he was a good Paladin, right? Interesting how Alliance has light and void now, though, both good and evil. Yeah, it's an interesting concept because, there's no black and white, there's shades of gray. But at the same time, if we're never gonna have a good and evil, then like what are the concepts even now? I feel like sometimes having clearly defined concepts at the opposite ends of the spectrum can help you have a better moral compass, right? I wholeheartedly agree with you. Paladin lore before BC was way better represented. Yeah. They could have called, like, I think some of you guys pointed out really cool. Blood Elves shouldn't be called Paladins, should be called Blood Knights. Taurens shouldn't be called Paladins, should be called Sunwalkers. And they could just be, and they could all just be a big class that's called Holy Users, Holy Practitioners, or light users, or light priests, or light warriors, or whatever, because they're all using the light, right? But the paladin is, I feel, the human. Let's say the dwarves would have learned naturally to become paladins since they're like closest to humans in terms of affinity and in terms of, I don't want to really say genetics, but they're kind of like the same, right? Humans and dwarves come from the Titan creations of the Stormforged and the Earth Warders, whatever. They've been affected by the curse of flesh from Yogg-Saron, and they turned into humans and dwarves. They're just different types of machines. Different sized dwarves were small, humans were taller, and they just became who they were, right? They might as well be interchangeable from this perspective, I feel. Not quite. The light and void are neutral. Paracausal forces. The uses of the forces can be for both good. That's what it is now, man, but that's kind of how it was built now, but Void was essentially built to consume the worlds and consume reality. And Light was built to save the world and protect reality. So then if I'm going to accept your premise, then I have to consider the intention of consuming the world and protecting the world as also neutral intentions. And I mean, not really, since we are living beings that are reliant on the world existing, so consuming the world kind of deletes our existence. And what we would consider that from a survival perspective as bad. So if we're gonna consider that as bad, then I would consider Void as bad or evil. Faith Knights, well, could be. The Paladin is basically the best class in the game. Mr. Duckwings. Arthas was a Paladin to become stronger as a DK, so DK is better than Paladin. Right, but I think in terms of fantasy, right, Paladin has it there. I don't know how they're doing all of this new Paladin stuff, and Eventually, it feels like we're gonna have orc paladins in this. For aesthetics, I guess it might look cool, but if we're going to dilute the concept of fantasy more and more, it starts to, you know, not matter anymore. Like, what even is fantasy anymore?